Document couriers wait outside. This conference room is not for you. Malcolm Reed pointed toward a chair beside the service elevator. He had no idea that the woman he had just humiliated was carrying something that could transfer control of Meridian before the morning ended. Cold rain struck the windows of Meridian Medical Systems headquarters in Seattle. Claire Bennett entered alone, holding an old leather briefcase with worn corners. No luxury vehicle, security guards, or team of advisors accompanied her. The only thing on her coat was a small pin shaped like the North Star. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, the wheel of a cart became trapped in a gap in the floor. An experimental infusion pump tilted away from its stand, sending a stack of documents into the air. Claire dropped her briefcase and rushed forward, catching the device before it struck the floor. The young engineer beside it quickly steadied the cart, his face turning pale. "Thank you. If it had broken, they would have blamed everything on me." Claire returned the machine to its stand, then knelt to collect every sheet of paper. She noticed that his hands were shaking so badly that he could not fasten the documents together. "What is your name?" "Daniel Ortiz, Testing Department. They want me to sign a statement saying the MediPulse 5 failure happened because I operated it incorrectly. If I do not sign before noon, I could lose my job and my daughter's medical insurance." Claire smoothed the prepared statement, read the conclusion that had already been printed, and handed it back. "Do not sign anything that does not accurately reflect the data. Keep a copy and record the name of everyone who asks you to sign." The machine suddenly produced 3 sharp beeps. The screen displayed error code M17. Claire became still and examined the serial number as though a door sealed for 12 years had suddenly opened. "Who changed the risk classification?" she asked. Daniel stared at her. "How do you know the classification was changed?" The conference room door opened. Malcolm Reed stepped into the hallway with 2 assistants. He looked at the machine and scattered papers, then noticed Claire kneeling on the carpet. "Has the technical department turned the hallway into a storage area again?" he asked coldly. "If you are delivering documents, leave them with reception. Do not block the board members." Claire stood. "I am Claire Bennett. I have an appointment to attend the ownership transfer meeting at 9 o'clock. Malcolm did not ask whom she represented. Assistants and document couriers wait outside. Today, we are receiving Meridian's new controlling shareholder." Claire removed a sealed envelope carrying the Northstar symbol from her briefcase. "You may open this letter or call Rachel Kim to verify my identity." Malcolm refused to take it. "The person behind Northstar has just completed a transaction worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That person would not arrive alone and collect papers for a technician." One assistant quietly reminded him. "The confidentiality agreement says the controlling representative may arrive alone." Malcolm turned toward reception. "Place a chair beside the service elevator. No one is to interrupt the meeting." The door closed in Claire's face. Through the small opening, Malcolm's voice carried into the hallway. "We need someone to accept responsibility before this afternoon. If Ortiz refuses to cooperate, the legal department will begin disciplinary action." Daniel lowered his head, but Claire moved the cart away from the walkway and took out her phone. "Photograph the error code, serial number, and time. Record the condition of every security seal." "Are you not going inside?" "Original data can disappear faster than an apology." They documented every detail. Claire instructed Daniel to send copies to secure storage, remain beside the machine, and never allow anyone to examine it alone. When Daniel left to contact a quality specialist, Claire sat on the chair in the hallway and opened her briefcase. Inside were an old engineering notebook, a steel flash drive engraved with M17, documents confirming that Northstar owned 51% of Meridian's voting rights, and her faded employee identification card. Ruth Palmer walked past, saw the card, and stopped. "Claire, have you carried what happened with you all these years?" Claire looked at the former colleague who had remained silent when she was forced to leave the company. "I returned because M17 has appeared again." Ruth looked toward the sealed records cabinet at the end of the hallway. Before she could say more, Malcolm stepped outside, closed the conference room door, and signaled for her to leave. A telephone rang inside the meeting room. Rachel Kim was calling Malcolm directly. "Has the new controlling shareholder arrived?" Malcolm looked through the glass toward Claire. "There is only a document courier in the hallway and an engineer waiting for disciplinary action." "Did you ask the woman's name?" Malcolm frowned. "We are in a meeting, Rachel." He ended the call. Inside the room, Evelyn Shaw looked at the empty chair at the head of the table. The clock had reached the scheduled time for announcing the transfer of control. "Why has Northstar's representative still not arrived?" she asked. Rachel did not answer. She looked through the glass wall and saw Claire sitting beside the service elevator with the sealed envelope resting on her knees. Rachel immediately stood and opened the conference room door. Every conversation stopped when she stepped into the hallway. "Mr. Reed," Rachel said, pronouncing every word clearly. "The woman you left outside is Claire Bennett, founder of Northstar and owner of 51% of Meridian." The color disappeared from Malcolm's face. He looked at Claire's name on the transfer documents, then remembered the female engineer whose dismissal he had approved 12 years earlier. But the question was no longer whether he could keep his position as chief executive officer. Claire's hand was resting on the steel flash drive engraved with M17, and Malcolm had no idea what it contained. Malcolm stared at the flash drive as Claire walked through the door he had just closed in her face. Rachel placed the sealed documents on the table. "The transaction was completed at 8:45 this morning," Rachel said. "Northstar controls 51% of the voting rights. Claire Bennett has the authority to propose changes to the executive leadership." Malcolm stood. "Making her wait was an administrative mistake. I apologize, but this meeting should continue so we do not damage the company's value." "Are you afraid I will dismiss you immediately?" Claire asked. Malcolm remained silent. "I will not replace evidence with emotion." She placed the flash drive on the table. "Stop shipping new MediPulse 5 units for 48 hours. Preserve the servers and arrange an independent examination of the device displaying error code M17. This order applies only to new shipments. We do not yet have evidence supporting a recall of devices already in use." Malcolm answered, "A 48-hour suspension could cost Meridian major contracts. If the factory stops shipping products, the employees will also suffer. Safety decisions require data, not fear from something that happened 12 years ago." His argument had some merit. Claire looked directly at him. "Then voluntarily release every safety report and instruction connected to M17. All available data has already been provided. Daniel Ortiz violated the testing procedure and is trying to conceal his mistake." Claire turned toward Rachel. "Establish a reporting channel managed by an independent organization. Daniel will not be dismissed or pressured to accept responsibility during the investigation. If he truly violated procedure, that conclusion must also be based on evidence. 2 hours later, independent specialists reproduced the M17 warning when the battery was low, and the device attempted to reconnect to the network at the same time. Claire compared the graph with her old engineering notebook. "The failure pattern resembles what I predicted," she told the technical board. "But the cause is different from the earlier incident. 12 years ago, the problem involved a power sensor. The current failure results from a combination of low battery power and network reconnection. My original conclusion about the cause was incorrect." Daniel stared at her. Claire had publicly corrected her own conclusion. He stepped forward. "I submitted the data through Northstar's reporting channel. 3 earlier internal complaints had already been closed." Rachel asked, "Did you include any patient information?" "No, I removed every identifying detail, but I skipped one step requiring notification of my direct manager because I was afraid the data would disappear again." "You must include that in your statement," Rachel said. "Telling the truth has value only when you include the part that does not benefit you." The door behind them opened. Ruth stood there holding a set of archive keys. "There is something you need to see." She led them to the records storage area. Claire still remembered the old access code, but she allowed Ruth to open the room so the chain of custody would remain intact. Claire's old employment file contained only report versions 4 and 7. One risk assessment page was missing. Rachel examined the index. "Where are versions 5 and 6? Ruth removed the transfer log from a sealed cabinet. "They once existed. After Claire refused to sign the safety certification, Malcolm, who was the chief financial officer at the time, ordered both versions transferred to the legal department. I recorded the transfer, then remained silent when the file was returned with pages missing." Her voice broke. "I was afraid of losing my job, but my silence helped them take yours away." Claire removed the steel flash drive. "I have a copy of version 5 that was legally preserved in my employment dispute records." Rachel stopped Claire before she connected the drive to the computer. "That copy is not enough to reach a conclusion. We must compare it with the storage records and server data. Your ownership of the company does not change the rules of evidence." "That is why you are here," Claire answered. She stepped away from the computer while Rachel sealed the flash drive and recorded the time in front of 2 witnesses. While they examined the archives, Malcolm called the company's internal attorney into a private office. He ordered the preparation of a disciplinary decision accusing Daniel of deliberately manipulating the device. But the servers were already under a preservation lock. The draft and its creation time immediately appeared in the system history. By that afternoon, Rachel had recovered the editing history for the current safety report. The risk level for M17 had originally been marked critical. It was later changed to remote through Malcolm's executive account. He folded his arms. "An assistant or information technology employee could have used my account. An access record does not prove who was sitting at the keyboard." Claire did not rush to accuse him. "Then we need a witness from the meeting where the change was ordered." Rachel's phone vibrated at that moment. The screen displayed the name Dr. Naomi Chen, who had repeatedly called but had been redirected by the Chief Executive Officer's office. Naomi appeared on the screen from the hallway of a children's hospital. The safety meeting with Meridian was recorded according to hospital policy. The recording is stored on an independent clinical server. I have sent access permission to the attorneys. Rachel opened the file in front of the board. The timestamp matched the report's editing history. Malcolm's voice could be heard clearly. Do not use the word critical. Classify it as a rare event until after the product launch. No one in the room moved. Malcolm stared toward the speaker as though he wanted to deny the sound of his own voice. Naomi remained connected. She spoke slowly. The recording continues for another 7 minutes. The next section reveals whom Mr. Reed selected to accept responsibility if a patient was placed in danger. The remaining 7 minutes of the recording were sealed. The following morning, Claire called a special hearing with independent attorneys, employee representatives, clinical experts, and department leaders. Meridian employees watched through the company's internal broadcast. Malcolm sat beside his attorney with copies of all the evidence in front of him. Claire opened the hearing. No one will be judged guilty simply because Mr. Reed once humiliated me. He has the right to examine the evidence, respond to it, and receive legal representation. Rachel confirmed that Northstar controlled 51% of Meridian's voting rights and explained the process for changing the executive leadership. Claire then placed her old employee identification card on the table. 12 years ago, I refused to sign a safety certification for a device that had not been fully tested. I lost my job, my awarded shares, and nearly my entire career. Malcolm began to speak, but Claire continued. The earlier case is not direct evidence concerning the current M17 failure. The technical causes are different. What we must examine is how the leadership responded when employees raised safety concerns. Dr. Naomi Chen appeared on the screen. The hospital recording played her warning about 2 incidents in which medication had been delivered too slowly. Then Malcolm's voice could be heard. Do not use the word critical. Classify it as a rare event until after the product launch. The recording continued. An engineer asked how the initial report should be written if a patient was placed in danger. Malcolm answered, focus on the testing team's failure to follow procedure. Ortiz bypassed management. If we need a name, begin with him. Daniel sat among the employee representatives with both hands tightly closed. This time, he did not lower his head. Rachel presented the server history, Ruth's archive log, version 5 from the flash drive, and the current report. The independent sources matched in timing, access records, and the information that had been changed. The disciplinary action against Daniel had also been drafted before the technical examination was complete. Daniel stood. I bypassed one management reporting step when I submitted the data to Northstar. I accept responsibility for that. But I did not manipulate the device, create the M17 failure, or alter the test results. Malcolm's attorney argued that someone else might have used his account. Rachel acknowledged that an access record alone was not enough. But the recording, meeting schedule, order to reduce the warning level, and prepared disciplinary file formed a consistent chain of evidence. Malcolm stood. If every warning is made public before it is verified, Meridian could collapse. Thousands of hospitals could lose access to equipment, and workers could lose their jobs. I chose to protect the company. Claire looked at him. A medical device company cannot protect itself by transferring financial risk to patients. But I am also not asking Meridian to close or issue an unsupported recall. We correct danger with evidence, not concealment. Evelyn Shaw removed her chairwoman's pin. I allowed Malcolm to control the information reaching the board. When complaints increased, I sent the warnings back to the same person accused in them. That was my failure of oversight. After the final response, the board voted. The result appeared on the screen before every employee. Malcolm was suspended and then removed from executive authority for concealing data, pressuring employees to reduce a safety classification, and preparing retaliation against a worker. He was not declared criminally guilty during the hearing. The records were transferred to regulators and independent legal counsel, while his severance benefits were temporarily withheld during the investigation. Evelyn resigned after the transition. Claire refused the position of Chief Executive Officer and created a committee to recruit a replacement. Meridian announced a corrective action plan. Shipments of MetaPulse 5 would remain suspended until testing was complete. Hospitals participating in the trial would be notified. Meridian would provide a software correction, free patient monitoring, and an audit of technical complaints covering the following 5 years. The new safety board included doctors and employee representatives. Naomi received authority to stop a clinical trial whenever an unexplained risk appeared. The reporting channel remained outside executive control. Safety reports would be issued regularly, and managers would no longer be evaluated, only according to launch speed and profit. Daniel was cleared of causing the M17 failure and kept his job. However, he was required to complete a standardized data procedure program before returning to the testing team. Ruth publicly apologized to Claire and accepted a position advising the project to digitize the company archives. 6 months later, MetaPulse 5 passed the new rounds of testing. Meridian released the corrected version at a reduced cost to community hospitals and rural clinics. The Guardian Project, the medical safety program Claire had once been forced to abandon, was also restored. She kept its original purpose and did not place her own name on it. Before the first meeting of the new safety board, Claire stopped in the hallway. The chair that had once been placed beside the service elevator was gone. When she entered the conference room, she saw it beside the board table. A sign attached to the back read, "Employee Safety Representative." Daniel was the first person to sit there. Ruth stood behind him, while Naomi appeared on the screen. No one had to lower their head and ask permission to speak about a danger that could threaten a patient again. 12 years earlier, the conference room door had closed in Claire's face. When she returned, she did not open it only for herself. She left it open for everyone courageous enough to speak the truth. Because justice does not begin with power. It begins with the decision not to remain silent when another person's life depends on our voice.